Welcome to the Girlfriend God Podcast, a podcast in search of and in service to the divine feminine, bringing you an equal mix of academic research and emotional spiritual experience. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment. If you enjoy this podcast, share it with your friends, rate and review it if you're listening on a streaming platform. Follow on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Now, let's get in the flow. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the Girlfriend God Podcast. Today I'm happy to welcome my occasional co-host, Dr. Carla Ionescu. I'm happy to welcome Liz Childs-Kelly, who is also the podcast host of Home to Her, and Kohenet
Ruach.
Thank you. I can never pronounce that word. D'vorah Grenn, and I'm going to go around the room and let each of them introduce themselves to the audience. Carla and Liz have been on the show before. D'vorah, you met earlier in this season, but this is the first time all three of them have met each other. So, ladies, go in whatever order you see fit, or go in the Hollywood Squares order. So on my screen, on my screen, that's Carla, Liz, and then D'vorah.
Okay, sure. Okay, let's do that. So hi, my name is Dr. Carla Ionescu. My PhD is in ancient history. I am a professor at York University in Canada. My focus is the goddess Artemis, whose book I don't have on me. That I wrote a book on Artemis called She Who Hunts, and I'm writing another one hopefully soon. I also host the Goddess Project, which is a podcast about the divine feminine and goddesses in the ancient world, and I sometimes co-host with Kelly to have a good time. Yes.
Thanks, Carla. Liz?
Oh, right. I was next. I'm Liz Childs-Kelly, and I am the host of the Home to Her podcast, which is dedicated to amplifying all the many voices of the sacred feminine. In its fourth year now, so have talked to some pretty amazing people. And I'm the author of the book Home to Her, Walking the Transformative Path of the Sacred Feminine, which reflects some of my own research that I've done over the years, plus my personal experiences on researching the goddess and the divine feminine. I'm very proud to say that the book is a 2023 recipient of a Gold Nautilus Award. So kind of psyched about that. Hey, that's me.
Hi, everyone. I'm D'vorah Grenn, coming out publicly with this title for the first time right now, Kelly, of Kohenet. Kohenet is a Hebrew priestess, and I realized in a meditation a couple of weeks ago that I'm a bridge very much between the land I often live in, Mesopotamia, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, and temple period, and of course modern times and modern feminism. So the N is meant to signify that. Anyhow, let's see. I founded the Lilith Institute, which has been dedicated to the sacred feminine, and we're now in our 26th year. And I did it as I was finishing my thesis on Lilith, which resulted in a book called Lilith's Fire. And some years later, put together an anthology with the help of I think 72, I still can't believe it, 72 amazing women from 25 spiritual traditions. It's an anthology of sacred writings, blessings, prayers, Reiki, meditations, and so on. And I am a former co-director of the Women's Spirituality Master's Program, which started at New College and then went to Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, which became Sophia University. But except for Napa Valley College, I left the academy in 2015 and started focusing on my institute's own classes and work, and just completed the leadership program with a wonderful group of women, and now focused again on yet other things, other classes, and very excited to be here. I have also a podcast, one which concluded after 50 episodes, Tending Lilith's Fire, that I did with Annie Matan, also a Kohenet, and grown-ass women's conversations with Jovelyn Richards, which is we've done just 3, but I hope we will be able to do more. And just very happy to be here with all of you accomplished women. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's so fabulous. I just smile through your whole resume, D'vorah, and I think I can speak for everyone when we say how happy we are to have you here. And I think we're all kind of in awe and admiration of you.
I think it's a mutual admiration society, but thank you.
With each one of you, I have had these individual conversations. So now we're kind of have this panel discussion, which like our one-on-one conversations have been, we're going to just see where the conversation takes us. But individually, I've spoken to all of you about this problem, that what I perceive as a problem, because I have been on both sides of the fence of being an academic, right? Because I was in a master's program. My master's is in library and information science. So technically I'm a librarian, even though I'm not currently employed as a librarian. But having worked in a university library as a graduate student and served as a librarian after that, as a metadata librarian in a preservation company, and having been a spiritual seeker all of my life, I see a disconnect between real, hardcore, academic, facts-based, evidence-based research about spiritual topics, like source information about goddess worship, goddess cults, goddess community, and the modern day goddess spirituality seeker, whose only research tool, or at least only research tool that most people are aware of, is Google. So since I spent a lot of time, mostly during the pandemic, I kind of had this resurgence of my pagan roots, and I was involved in a lot of online communities, as most people were during the pandemic. So I fell in with a lot of witchcraft circles and Facebook groups and chat groups and Zoom meetings and all of that. And I saw an alarming amount of misinformation. And I feel like this disconnect is largely responsible for that. So that's why I titled this episode, bridging the gap of this. So what do we do about that? What do we do about this huge chasm of, real world facts-based information and misinformation, where the internet is both our greatest asset, but also evil, and anyone can go first. Speak as the spirit moves you, as they would say.
I'll go first. I posted this video recently on the Minoan, and when I was in the Iraqi Museum, I took a video of the Minoan palace at Knossos. And I had this conversation with Laura Perry, who is not technically a PhD, but has done tremendous research in Minoan civilization. And so I had this interview with her. Anyways, I posted this maybe 20-second video saying that the palace of Knossos may not have been a palace. The Minoans may not have had a kingship, blah, blah. And it blew up, like in a good way for me, because it gave me a bunch of followers. And I appreciate that. But a lot of so I got 2 of the same comments, mostly from dudes. Sorry, dudes who are watching this. 2 of the same comments. Number 1, Laura Perry is not a scholar. Okay. I think I called her a scholar, and I was literally in my parking lot just kind of reading, like just kind of saying stuff, over the video. Laura Perry is not a scholar. Okay. I looked her up and I didn't find her PhD, this kind of stuff. Okay. To which I then direct them to some of her research and her blogs and stuff like that. The other one I get is, well, of course they had kings. They had King Minos and they had and they had Then I get like those dudes that did the Google homework, I had one this morning who was okay, but telling me, well, the Mycenaeans had arrived there and then the Minoans came after, to which I replied, a simple Google search would just give you the dates. Go do your homework and come back. Yeah. So the reason I bring this up is because it garnered so much commentary and it brought so much of both. Like I had some people that had some knowledge. I had some people that had no knowledge. I had people, and I think it really brought home to me. And so at one point when I got really snotty, when someone was really talking about, oh, Laura Perry, this, and I said, or no, somebody said to me, oh, you call yourself a historian, but you're quoting someone that's not a scholar. And I said, well, I don't call myself a historian. I am one. My PhD was approved by like 8 other PhD at a university. And my PhD allows me to discern whether someone's research is good. You don't have to have a PhD to do good research, right? So I don't know if this answers your question, but I think this is this is the problem. And I don't know if anyone else knows how to answer these things in a diplomatic way. But this has been my dilemma just the last week. It's been pretty nuts.
Wow. I think sometimes we maybe have to stop worrying about diplomacy, although I do, but I'm losing patience, with some of these things. And certainly I agree with you that there are many amazing independent scholars. Max Dashu comes right to mind, and many others, who don't have the degree, and it doesn't matter. And I think I can say that and not feel I'm denigrating your degree, my degree, or, and I don't know about Liz, or Kelly, yours, it really doesn't matter. It's like having a spiritual leader who's got the credentials to be clergy, but has no empathy or has no pizzazz, it doesn't inspire people when they give a sermon, so it is a really individual thing. As far as Google, years ago, I would always tell students, I guess 20 years ago we're talking, or a little more, don't even use Google as a source. I mean, that because it was still, nascent. And over time, it's gotten better. And so maybe 10, 12 years ago, I started allowing it, but I would say always check Google with another place of research. It's as simple as going, as to the footnotes or the bibliography, mostly the sources, and going there and seeing if those are legit, because often now they are definitely the right people, who you'd want to read or quote. So the fact that it's on Wikipedia doesn't matter. So actually what I'm talking about is Wikipedia, not Google per se. It's gotten hard to distinguish, and who knows who's writing what now, especially with all this nonsense about AI. And I find that very frightening, to it's happening, that artificial intelligence is putting out a lot of the information you might find on Google. So I think we have to be really vigilant and check, now I would probably say check 3 sources, if you want to claim anything as a scholar or a student. So that's just my first pass on it.
Trying to organize my thoughts. I'm really glad you both went first because I have lots of the ideas here. I'm like, will they come together into a coherent sentence? Let's give it a try. I don't know. So I don't have a PhD in this subject. I have a master's degree in communication theory, and had a first career that was focused in public relations and communications, and had my own communications firm. And so I'm going on a little tangent here, so bear with me. But one of the things that was important about the way that the divine feminine came to me personally was it was a deeply experiential thing. It was not, it wasn't in a book. It wasn't rooted in facts. And so there's always been a dance for me of honoring that, right? Like for me, that experience of the divine feminine it's the body, it's experiential, it's intuitive. And I've done priestess work around that to bring that in as well. And And yet I have sought out the facts. And I don't know that I'd even connected the dots that perhaps having a master's degree and just being a geek when it comes to learning helped me use Google to point me towards like scholar. And I will sit down and read an academic book with the best of you. Like that makes me happy. So it pointed me towards sources. And I feel like I had a grounding of what was legitimate and what wasn't through this other master's degree program. And I'm just skeptical, you know. I think when I look around at the landscape that you were referring to, Kelly, what I feel like I've noticed is it feels really largely influenced by social media, and people want something that's quick and pithy to click on. And so maybe they read like a meme that references something, and then they throw a picture alongside it, which is usually a white woman that's really thin and really beautiful. And, you know, like, goddess empowerment. And then it gets shared, you know, 5,000 times. And then that becomes our fact-based information. Sometimes there aren't even sources quoted. People just steal this stuff. Like, it's kind of crazy. They don't source the photos. Like and that does concern me. And it's not, I think it concerns me even more, you know, the stealing and all that, and the lack of factual information is troubling. But what really bothers me is that there's this huge historical record out there that we aren't getting to people. That's what really troubles me, is that it is there and it's fascinating. And there are incredible women that have been pulling this research together over decades. You mentioned Max Tichoux, especially people who are doing this at a time when it was really hard to do it for very little accolades and recognition, and facing obstacles I can't even imagine. And I
money.
No money. And I would like to counter that because I think it's fascinating. It's interesting. It's our birthright. And I want to get it to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a couple of things I want to respond to. So first, yeah, I am certainly not suggesting that, you know, I had this whole rant several months ago about when did personal gnosis become a dirty word, because I think there is value in that, right? I mean, Liz, you and I know I had that whole thing with the green malachite and Ellen of the Ways, and that was not in any book. Right? That was something that I knew intuitively, and that has to do with my ancestry and ancient Siberia and like that whole thing. And so yes, I'm not undervaluing that there are some things that are very intuitive. And even when I was a practicing witch, there were a lot of things that I wanted to do intuitively as part of my ritual work or ceremonial work. But I also, and I think you're right, maybe it's just a certain type of personality. Like I'm like you, like I'm a geek and a nerd, and I want to do things correctly. And I also know that as a practitioner of magic, that magic is very practical, and I am well aware of the kind of energy that I'm working with, and that not knowing what I'm doing is kind of dangerous. So I want to know what I'm doing, right? Because I don't want to do it wrong. So I want to turn to ancient texts that I know exist to make sure that I'm doing it right. Right? Because I don't want to, I don't know, accidentally raise a demon or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean. So I get it. Yes, there is certainly value in personal gnosis. But I think, like what you're saying, being influenced by social media, and anyone watching this on YouTube saw my facial expressions in regard to saying things like not quoting your sources, no referencing of material whatsoever. These are the things that drive me insane, especially as a librarian and an archivist and a preservationist, for goddess' sake. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Nothing drives me more insane than seeing a quote without attributing someone, even if it's anonymous. Right. Quote, anonymous.
Yeah.
But I digress. So I'm bothered by things. One of the things I wanted to ask about specifically is why do more people not know about, and I guess I'm changing topics here a little bit. I thought initially that the problem was that because, especially with academic research, because so much of it is behind a paywall, right? I mean, we all know that good journal articles are often behind a paywall in a university library. But I am often surprised at how few people know about the Internet Archive. There's a world of accessible source material available on the Internet Archive. That's 90% of what the Internet Archive is, are scanned documents from university libraries. Why do more people not know about this institution and that it's accessible to them for free?
Yeah.
I didn't know about this resource.
I didn't know about it
So
either.
thank you.
See what I mean?
I had no idea.
Or
No.
you know what it is, right?
I only really know about it in the last few years because I taught a class that was recorded on Zoom for an institution, and they keep it up through Internet Archive. But yeah, I don't go there for print, so thank you for the reminder. I tend to go to academia.edu, which is such a wonderful storehouse of
Yes.
information. Yeah.
So the Internet Archive is a nonprofit organization, and its mission is to scan every book in the world ever written.
Wow.
Which is obviously a lofty goal that they're never going to achieve. However, they partner with many institutions, but the primary institutions that they partner with are university libraries. So they scan and make publicly available anything that's in the public domain. Which obviously includes a lot of very boring material that we would never want to read.
Yeah.
It also includes a lot of really cool stuff. And it's not just books either. It's video and film and audio and live concerts, and I'm still amazed.
I think that expecting the public to, sorry, Kelly, I'm cutting you off.
That's good.
I think that expecting a lot of people to pick up an academic article may be a little unrealistic. And I say that hesitantly because I did have somebody approach me about this video and say to me, oh, there are a lot of articles on JSTOR that you could read about the Minoans. And I kind of laughed and I thought, oh, okay, you assumed I didn't read any of these. And so I don't know what the future holds, because in one way, yes, there's lots of articles on JSTOR, but academics disagree with each other. So you got to read several, right? Like you got to really be passionate. Let's say if we take the Minoans, you got to be passionate about the Minoans. You got to fall down that rabbit hole. You got to do your work. And what you really find at the end is like none of them have the answer anyways. So, and then I think I said to this individual, JSTOR is fantastic for students, like, and for everyone, but it's 5-7 years behind because it takes forever to publish something on JSTOR, right? We're just having a conversation, dude. We're not making a published, about this particular Gnosis, right? I'm not publishing a book saying, I know for sure that this was not a palace, right? So I don't know how to have these conversations where in one way you can say, yes, of course, read something that's academic. In another way, you can say, well, the academics may not be right. In another way, you say, well, we have archaeological culture, but then you have to interpret that. You have to talk about bias. I mean, I guess what I should say is take a course. Here, I should build one, but even then you expect people to read and have opinions, not like you're just giving them facts and then they just go, oh, okay, now I know all the facts, because then tomorrow there'll be some other fact that came up. Right.
I just want to interject to that one sad development that I see happening is you're talking about that they'll do the homework, and for a certain kind of student, that's true. But there are some adult learners I'm finding in lifelong learning type of programs that really just want to show up, absorb the content of when you're teaching a live class, and do very little reading. So it's been a real adjustment for me as an academic or former academic, who still it's in my blood, of course, to maybe assign one article, per class and hope they read it, and I still will give a big bibliography and suggestions, but it took me a while to stop being super disappointed that one or two people in a class of 20 might be interested enough to actually get the reading done in a weekly class. So that's one development that I see that's very sad. And I don't actually think it's limited to adult learners in these lifelong continuing ed programs. I've heard about it at all kinds of levels of universities, of the students at, in their 20s who are also not doing it. So, and I think what's been mentioned about social media, and Liz, you talked about this, has, of course, affected people's attention spans and what they absorb as true and fact. And the memes, I mean, they're funny and they're sometimes useful, but they're also killing us in a sense of not wanting to know more, not wanting to know more than a quote, and not really ever, I'm sure most 98% of people ever checking the source. And I just want to say also one word that you brought up about the art not being credited, I know is a source of great concern to artists. Even I've heard from a friend of mine that even having your name credited isn't enough. They feel that the artist should also be paid, which I understand. But to not even give credit because you picked it up off of Pinterest is also inexcusable to me, as is not giving credit for a quote or an idea.
Yeah. And I was guilty of that. I mean, a few years ago, I think, and I'm thinking of this attitude of the internet is, well, it's all just there. It's all just free. Like if I can just Google it and find it, like I can do whatever I want with it. And so I was grateful. I've had a Facebook group for several years on this topic of the divine feminine. And it was through people sharing things, including me in there, that kind and patient group members educated me on the protocol of that, of like, hey, this is not cool. And I was grateful for that. I did always quote my sources, but I didn't always credit the artist. And so it's so important. I think what I wanted to add to this too is I've been thinking about me, and I at the time when I started this journey, I lived in California. I lived in the Bay Area. CIIS has a PhD program in women's spirituality, like right there in my backyard. And I thought about many times enrolling in that program. And for me, it seemed really important that I didn't, because there was something about following the breadcrumbs of what was being shown to me, and that I follow that path instead of having the gifted and wonderful teachers that I know are there lay out that path for me. And so I think what has interested me about this subject is I know there will always be people like me who want to go on a deep dive into the research, and they want to know it, like it's important. And I think of the bias in history, just the extreme bias, and how few of these stories we're actually getting. And I know that is what really lights me up, is figuring out how to get that to people, not in an academic way, in a way that they can relate to and they can understand, and that it is credible. But ideally, Carla, they're not in your position of like trying to defend, like whatever, but they know that what they got was accurate. And to do that in a way that's palatable and not boring. I think sometimes people hear history. I know nobody here thinks history is boring, but I think sometimes people hear that word and they think it's boring, and it's so relevant to what's happening now. It gives us a framework. It tells us that this story that we've been told is not the only story, that there are actually many different aspects of the story, that a very small group of people have controlled the narrative, and that when we start to hear other aspects and other stories, then we can start to envision something different for ourselves. And that's what I get super passionate about. And then to me, it's less about like, yes, let's get the facts right, but you don't have to enroll in a program. You don't have to, like but you should know this because it belongs to you.
Right. I think that I feel like, and D'vorah, it's interesting because I think with these two, I have had this conversation that you and a few other women and other women that we have talked to, I'm thinking of Glennis Livingstone in particular, along with a handful of other women that I think we probably both have secret longings that we want to have on our podcast, but we just haven't talked about it yet. There are these women who we consider our foremothers of this goddess feminist spirituality, and we want to be like sponges and gather all of your knowledge before you all shuffle off this mortal coil. we can glean the knowledge that you guys have gathered over these decades, because it does seem like Liz was saying, how do we, like, maybe we are the bridge of knowledge, right? Because you have these handful of us geeks who do like to do research, but we also, we're kind of cute and we have podcasts and we're funny, and you know what I mean? Like, we are the disseminators of information, and because this is the culture that we live in, and we're trying to work within the framework that we find ourselves in, which is not in the halls of academia. It's in the frame on somebody's phone watching YouTube. That's what we have to work with. And I can't speak for Liz or Carla or even you, D'vorah. I mean, this. That's why you have a podcast still, right? And I love yours. I mean, you're relevant conversations with grown-ass conversations or whatever it is. I mean, that's funny and it's eye-catching, and young people are going to be drawn to that. That title of a podcast would catch the attention of my 20-something-year-old niece.
Oh, that's good to know.
That's how it starts. But that's how it starts. You know what I mean? I think I used to write off these younger people, and then I remember, oh, that's right, I'm in my 50s, and they are the future of this goddess spirituality. So I want them to know the things that we know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're fucked.
It's really important.
We're fucked, but the goddess movement is fucked if they don't know what we know.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm working really hard to make sure that doesn't happen.
You are. You really are.
I'm trying.
Yeah. Oh, no, you definitely are getting it out there.
I'm trying. And I think that Carla and Liz are trying really hard too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think Carla needs to find the other academics who are dipping their toe into, actually having a spiritual life.
It's funny, D'vorah, they said that that you left academia in 2015, because Kelly and I just had this conversation this morning about, and actually it's funny that you said that, Liz, about the PhD, because I feel like when I got my PhD, I was very censored. Very, very censored. And so, you have to present your list of books you want to read. You have to present your topic. And every turn, it was like censor, censor, censor. Not this person, not this person. Gimbutas barely made it on there.
Wow.
Because, oh my God, like I tried to put Merlin Stone as sort of the foundation of that early movement. No, Merlin Stone. So,
wait, can I just ask a quick question? Was it because her research is considered not sound now? I know that some of the issues around Maria Gimbutas, but
so it was basically a lot of goddess woo-woo stuff. So they didn't want all the goddess woo-woo stuff. They were like, you can't be a serious academic and follow Gimbutas. Basically, that's what they said to me. And so I had to make an argument for why I put her on there. My argument,
they're like real, actual archaeological.
Yes, she did. But because she labeled it goddess worship and she didn't label it statue of woman sitting.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because she used that language, which now they're starting to do a lot more. If you go to museums, you see a lot of, no one says goddess anymore. It just says statue of woman holding breasts or statue of, they don't even name the god unless they know for sure, like unless it's more so
Can I
yes,
just interrupt?
yes, do it.
So, for example, we have her,
I know, I love her.
and she's only identified in the British Museum as Lady of the Night. But
Right?
it does say she could be a Ereshkigal. It doesn't say Lilith. It doesn't say, I don't think it says Nana or Ishtar. And she's all three of those in my mind and other people's minds.
Wow.
So, yes, and a fertility doll. I mean, yeah, the appellations are horrible. Kelly, what?
I was completely unaware of this, and you guys need to tell me who I need to contact and who I can be outraged at. You know me. I will not remain silent. I will write letters, send emails, make phone calls. That's what I do.
It's so sad because I had 4 women on my committee and 3 men, and the women gave me the hardest time.
Well, 7 on
my
the
PhD
committee is hard. Wow.
Yeah. They gave me a really hard time. Yeah.
I wrote about
Carol,
this in my, oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, I wrote about this in my book. That one of my personal realizations was that there's nothing, like, this is not a shock to you, but there's nothing in our culture that is not built on a foundation of patriarchy, and that includes like just all of our cultural underpinnings. And that, in my experience, that includes academia, that includes the way we approach education, religion, like everything. And so if none of that has been built with a more expansive perspective in mind, then I also felt like, what can I expect from it if I'm wanting to go into this space that, as you just so accurately named, Carla, is considered woo-woo? Like, how are those things going to work together? And it's almost like a double, we're dealing with the history, like we're dealing with the fact that people don't know this and that it's been suppressed, and then we're dealing with the fact that when we do want to explore it inside institutions, that they're not built for that exploration. You can certainly correct me, because like I said, I have not pursued higher education in this, but that was where my thinking was around this.
Carol Christ was turned down on her the first dissertation she wanted to do. She had to start over, I think, on a whole new topic. And I know Judith Plaskow also ran into huge problems, and you would think that wouldn't happen anymore. So it's very, but I know it does, Carla, and it's very upsetting to hear. And it is certainly one of the problems, I would think, within academia. And the fact that if we want to have, maybe because we want to go teach at a university, so need the PhD, it is disheartening that, I mean, it affected my choice of school. I went to CIS and then actually went back again for my PhD. I did most of my women's spirituality master's there, but then there was a big political upheaval, as you may know, and 28 of us moved to New College and started a new program there. But yeah, there's just a lot that has yet to be unearthed. And one of the things that I want to mention when we talk about the history and what people don't know is about Inanna and the Enheduanna literature. All her literature to Inanna, all her praises, her lamentations, that's the first writing by the first woman, and that's the first writer of record from 2350 BCE. How many people know that? Exactly.
No one knows this.
I mean, the great thing is they just did at the, I'm going to forget the name now, a museum in New York. You went?
Yes, I went. Morgan Library. It was fantastic.
Morgan Library, right.
Yeah.
The first place that I know of to have such an exhibit like that really delved into this a few months ago. And we were so excited because this is something the New York Times Magazine should have covered years ago when Betty DeShong Metter was still alive. Her books on Inanna and the, dissection of all of it.
Well, I will tell you, though, even if you read the New York Magazine piece, there's questions. Did she really write this? You will find the speculation there, and it's so disheartening and painful. I mean, she's naming herself. You had priests copying her poems for hundreds of years. Like, I don't know how much evidence you need.
Right, we found writings. Yeah,
it's there. Like, we got it,
right.
And still there's questions. Well, we're not
always.
sure.
Always.
And that is so frustrating. I will say too that I was moved to tears by that exhibit, and not because it was small. It wasn't, the Morgan Library is not a big place, and it was
Right.
I don't know. Did you go there?
No,
Were you
no,
there? Okay.
I'm in California. I would have loved to go. But no.
Yeah. It's not a big room.
I
But
saw the virtual tour or something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but to see all of it in one place.
Oh, yeah.
And to see it treated with respect, and like I could cry about it now. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so rare, and it shouldn't be that way. It really shouldn't be that way.
Yeah. It should be taught like in high schools for sure.
Yes.
Yes.
And D'vorah, it's funny you say Carol Christ, who I love and whose life I feel like I'm emulating. Because I'm pulled to Crete and I want to build a center there, and
Yes.
But when I was in grad school and I found Carol Christ and I found her work and I was obsessed with it, one of my PhD committee members was saying, Carol Christ is a warning sign because she went off the deep end and went to Crete and never came back to academia.
Oh my God. But can we not say that this is a sign of somebody who's a prophet, for example?
Right.
Which they might have said if she was a man.
Right. Following his dreams, right? Following his passions.
His
but
intuition.
for her,
right.
That's right. And she still is one of my, the people that I would like to emulate. But it's funny that you say it, because I knew of her throughout my grad studies as sort of like, this is what happens if you go too far out there and then you're not taken seriously as an academic.
Wow.
Right. And even now, like I told Kelly, because I'm stepping more and more away from academia myself. I published the book myself because everybody wants to tell you what to write and how to write and where does it fit with their stuff. And I'm like, no, I can, thank God I have the PhD attached to my name so that I can defend the research that I've done.
Right.
Not that it matters to everyone else except academic.
Right.
But like you're saying, Kelly, finding people that stepped out. I mean, there are people that have stepped out, but they have left. I don't know that there's too many people straddling. I guess they're trying, but it's very hard to straddle because the minute you're not academically published, you kind of become disregarded in a sense. Like you're, I don't know. That's been just my experience. I don't know any other goddess writers in my university because we don't actually have, like you say, a women's spirituality program. That would never happen here.
What's university?
Oh, York University in Canada.
Right.
Canada is very conservative. And we're the most liberal university in Canada. Yeah.
I think Annalisa Dare would be a really interesting person to have as part of this conversation. Carla, didn't you just do an interview with her fairly recently? I thought you did.
Yes.
Yeah, I did as well. And I know I don't know what her PhD is in, but I know that this is.
Told me, but I forgot to.
I feel like it's mythology or something. And I know
she's definitely
doing a deep dive around menstruation, and there's a connection to Inanna, but she would be an interesting person to talk to as well at some point on this. Yeah.
So I guess the good news is we do seem to find ourselves smack in the middle of an incredible resurgence of an interest in goddess spirituality. Would you say that that is true?
Yes.
And is that what we're all kind of collectively experiencing? Do you think that's true, D'vorah, based on what you're seeing?
I do. I don't know numbers. I always never feel we're reaching enough people, but I think so. I think there is a groundswell, and it is hard to be sure because the people whose posts I see on Instagram are people that I often have followed. So it's a bubble.
Right. It's hard to get a read on that because I'm the same, right? And especially since that's how the algorithm works, right? I'm being shown what I'm interested in. So it would be interesting to know if there are statistical studies somewhere, like if somebody somewhere, this is where we need the academics, right? Like somebody somewhere is probably doing a study and maybe in a master's program, right?
We don't know about it, right?
Of goddess worship or goddess worshipers or people practicing a goddess religion. And I'll be honest, I think we owe a lot to a resurgence in witchcraft, right? Because a lot of witches work with a lot of goddesses. So they are feeding and kind of fanning the flames of goddess worship. But again, that's where I saw the most misinformation about, I mean, half of the witches I knew, more than half, who were working with goddesses, that all the information they knew about said goddess was either incomplete or completely inaccurate. So that's a problem, and that's why we've had episodes like The Inaccuracies about Lilith in Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and Lilith in that the last 2 seasons of True Blood, and you know what I mean? Yeah,
Warrior Nun. I just saw an episode last night.
I know, don't get me started, another show that was canceled because,
I know,
God forbid, because that's where the direction of that show was going in, right? There was going to be a goddess.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, and questioning.
And it was a long line of shows that were canceled on Netflix because there was lesbian content and strong female character leads. Don't get me, that's a whole other show.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I feel like so for me, since I've stepped out of the academic closet, I've been approached like en masse by people and so I feel like people are thirsty to know, like they want to know. But I think you're right, D'vorah, in the sense that they don't want to read as much. I have this Goddess Reads book club on Facebook. I tried to get people to come read a book with me. So what I'm doing now is I pick a book a month and I do quotes from that book, and then maybe we'll get a meeting together. So you're trying to present not necessarily always just academic books, but any books on the goddess that are, interesting. So I think like there is a thirst. Like I find the minute that you talk about goddesses, there's a lot of women and some men who are like, I want to learn, I want to know, how do I go about it? It is also true that a lot of people don't want to do a 4 or 5 year degree, to do that. So maybe maybe there is a burgeoning, like you said, but it's sort of now because of all the things that are in the air. How do we
get that done? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great though, that you're feeling that.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people who are like, when I tell them like, I want to build a center and I want to build a temple to Artemis, and to have, people are fascinating everybody. And I just had a friend of mine say, if you're building something in Crete, then maybe I'll build something over here and we can connect. And I thought, oh my God, what a dream if we could rebuild temples to the sacred feminine, right? And interconnect, like, oof.
I got chills now. Definite chills on that one. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, that's my dream for the Church of the Goddess. If we build one, we will build many.
Yeah.
If we build many, they will start building them in other countries. And then the next thing you know, we have the global church that unifies every goddess path ever walked, every place ever. That's the dream.
It's life-changing information. For sure. Yeah,
it is. Perhaps the fact that we're dreaming it though is already a sign that things are changing.
And the first step. Yeah.
And hopefully in D'vorah's lifetime, we'll come up with the technology to make her live forever. So
no, please no. No, but we are trying to.
Or maybe just upload your brain to the cloud. And then
I actually just put my dissertation on academia, and after all these years, because a friend was encouraging it, and I have several friends who are, to your point, Kelly, who are aware that we need to think about legacy and that we're trying to collect our work and get it out there. That it's archived. Yeah.
As a preservationist and an archivist, I also would strongly encourage you.
Well, I would also, thank you. I would also just say that if you know of any libraries, what I'm worried about is where my physical library goes when I die. So if you have any thoughts about that, please do let me know. I have to go in a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
I will give that some thought.
A lot of libraries don't seem to want books, I mean, it's crazy, even before COVID.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Maybe we need a new goddess library,
we do. We actually do.
right?
Well, I
Temple of
love that
Artemis.
idea. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
Okay, so I want the church to have its own library.
Mm.
So
Mm.
just putting that out there.
Yeah. Yeah, we may need a goddess library or several goddess libraries. We may need to start collecting
Right, both a physical one and a digital one that people can access online.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, into that, you're making me think of, I don't know how many of you know Trista Hendren of Girl God Books, but I know
Yep.
that she's long held a dream to have an art gallery where she's got sacred feminine art from around the world that she would have in Norway, which would also be amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
A standing art gallery just for goddess work and goddess and sacred feminine.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what the fundraising is for. I mean, we could really, you know, we need a little more, but it's possible.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great idea.
We don't have to wait, like, I mean, for the government or the patriarchy or whatever to give it to us. We
Right.
just have to figure out a goddess model and a business model, you know, like a goddess business model to create these spaces. Because I think women will come, you know, but like if you build it, they will come kind of thing.
I think that I do think that women are hungry. I think it is absolutely no accident that, because you know me, right? There are no coincidences, only providence, right? No coincidence, only providence. So this goddess resurgence and this, it is time for the collapse of the patriarchy, burn everything to the ground mentality, and women are angry, and rightfully so, are happening at the same time. Is, you know, everything is in divine order.
Well, to have it as part of the Church of the Goddess would be a great idea and would not be very costly if we did the digital version first.
Right.
Seems to me. Yeah.
That's right.
And much more accessible, of course.
Yep.
I have so much to do, my friends.
We need 30-hour days, huh?
Right. So I think the answer is, how do we bridge the gap of knowledge? Well, us.
Really. We're the ones we've been waiting for, right?
Right.
We are the ones.
And Liz, you and I talked about that, right? That this is the way, right?
I think maybe the fact that we're having the conversation is it's happening, like, and so may this spark more, you know, may people hear it. And
yes and you know, I plan to have more panel conversations like this, so I think hopefully that will be helpful moving forward. Well, D'vorah, I know that you have to run, and I think we're just over an hour anyway, or just about at an hour, so okay, ladies, well, I'm going to do my thing that I do and just end abruptly, and the screen kicked off of Zoom.
Thank you for bringing us together.
Yes, thank you for this conversation.
Thank you.
Fabulous, and I look forward to doing it again.
Yes.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Be excited about where we're at and what's to come. Until I see each of you again, Carla, I'll probably see you sooner than others. May the peace and the love of the goddess be with you.
Yes.
And with you. Thank you.
Much gratitude.
You too. Bye, ladies.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching The Girlfriend God on YouTube. If you enjoy this podcast, the best way you can support it is to like it, follow it, leave comments on the page, rate it, review it, share it with your friends. But most of all, subscribe to this channel. And if you want more of The Girlfriend God, you can find The Girlfriend God on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Thanks again for watching.